If there's one thing that we've learned from this movie, it's that if you see a strange machine, don't touch it.
It's a washing machine and a dryer.
Oh. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below, and it gives you a pretty good overview of what the Horror Movie Syllabus is all about. Basically, we take a look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this series is called the Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, and it's where I take a recommendation from you guys, a movie that I've never seen before, and I watch it for the first time, and I let you know what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and ultimately, is it worthy enough of making it onto the horror movie syllabus? As I'm sure you've already seen from the thumbnail and the title of the video, the movie that we're looking at today is ARQ, A-R-Q, and I'll be honest, when I saw the title, I thought it was ARQ, but when I watched the movie, I realized it actually is indeed ARQ. And I'm guessing that those letters stood for something, but if it did, I missed it. I didn't catch what the acronym is, if they said in the movie, but I'll bet you anything that the Q stands for quantum. This movie was recommended to us by a friend of the channel, Ted Harrington, and Ted is somebody that I can always count on to give me a bunch of great recommendations, eclectic stuff, weird stuff, and so I didn't know what I was going to get. I knew that he recommended this movie in the time travel video, so had an idea that it was going to be something related to time travel. That was a given, but that's all he told me. He didn't tell me anything else about that, and that's great because I'm going in basically blind. I didn't watch the trailer, didn't read anything about it, just put it on, and to see what it was about. Trusting Ted's recommendation, which frankly, with some of the stuff Ted's recommended, I'm a little terrified to trust his recommendation because some of the titles, good lord. But this one was mysterious. ARQ. I don't know what that is. So popped it in, and did I enjoy it? Did I have a blast, or did it let me down? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and go through what I liked about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie. Tell you at the end, is it syllabus worthy? So let's go ahead and jump into the review of the movie right now. Today's recommendation that we're talking about is ARQ, A-R-Q. And ARQ came out in 2016 and is admittedly more of a science fiction slash action movie than a horror movie, but that's okay. You know, I'm pretty loose and fast with those kind of rules. And it was directed by a guy named Tony Elliott, who I'm not terribly familiar with. I guess he was somebody who worked on Orphan Black and the show 12 Monkeys, not the movie, but the show 12 Monkeys, which I really liked quite a bit. And I gathered this movie was a script that he wrote that actually got him the job for TV, but wasn't produced by the people that gave him the job for TV, and eventually got produced by Netflix. And actually, it's a Netflix original, and I missed it when it came out on Netflix. I don't watch a whole lot of Netflix movies, but this is one that got under the radar for me back in 2016, and didn't really know anything about it until it came up here in the recommendations, and so I watched it, and yeah, we're going to get into it in just a second. But first, if you haven't seen it before, the movie takes place in a near future dystopia where food is scarce, resources are scarce, and the world is racked by war between a corporation and these freedom fighters. And it centers on this engineer who used to work for that corporation but has left because he's made a machine called the ARC that is a perpetual motion energy machine. And it is able to basically generate renewable energy. It's a source of endless energy. And he's reunited with an ex girlfriend of his, and they are the victims of a home invasion that goes horribly wrong. Only our engineer protagonist finds himself stuck in a bit of a time loop where he keeps reliving the same moment over and over again, and he must figure out what's going on, why these people are invading him, what do they want with the machine, and what's causing this time loop. As hijinks abound, as of course they do in movies like this, and as I get more and more into the movie, because this movie, I'm going to admit, it started out slow. It started out slow for a little while, and I was kind of feeling like it was a little bit by the numbers, a little bit whatever. I'm an easy lay for a time loop movie. You know me, I love my time travel stuff. I love it. And so even though this movie kind of seemed a little flat, a little dull, if I'm being honest with you, I was sticking with it because it's time travel stuff. I knew that it was going to get into a time travel, time loop type thing at some point, so I was okay. And it gets to it fairly quickly. And even once it gets to the time loop stuff, I'm still kind of thinking it's a little bit rote. It's a little bit whatever. It's fine. It's perfectly mundane. But it keeps going and it gets more interesting and more interesting and more interesting. And before I know it, I'm sucked in. I got totally drawn into this movie. By the time, but not even by the end, by the time I'm halfway through the movie, I'm engrossed. I'm really into it. And it's really a testament to it that it found a way to keep the time loop concept fresh. I love me a time loop movie, but one of the drawbacks to them is that, it's the people repeating the same events over and over again. And part of the fun is seeing how they do things differently or how they start to recognize that things are the same and how they can use the information they've gleaned in repeating things to help them solve the problem. That's fun stuff. But it is, trite. We've seen it many, many times before. We've seen it better than it was doing in this movie at the beginning. But this movie kept the concept fresh throughout and therefore kept sucking me in more and more and more until I was completely invested in the movie. And the way that it did this is that it really had a tight script that really kept changing the stakes of the time loops. Like, I don't want to say too much about how it did this because I want to avoid spoilers, but let's just say that the movie felt very predictable about where it was going. Once you get to the time loop part, you kind of can tell where this movie's going to go. And then something would happen that would change things. It would change the stakes. It would change the storyline. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but all of a sudden the time loop is different, and what has to happen is different. And it really did a great job of continually doing that over and over again in ways that were logical, in ways that made sense, that had a story reason for it, but kept things fresh too. It's a tight script. It's really good. It did what a lot of other time loop movies fail to do, which is keep from being formulaic and predictable. It kept shuffling things, changing motivations, changing objectives, changing characters even, so that it kept you on your toes and kept things from being stagnant or predictable, and really kept you just locked in and just wondering what in the world was going to happen next. And I absolutely loved that feeling. The ending was a solid ending. I liked the ending. I liked how it ended. It might frustrate some other people who wanted a little bit more resolution or explanation as to how things resolved. I don't feel like I needed that. I think the movie gave me exactly what I wanted, exactly what I needed. So I was pretty pleased with the ending, but just a fair warning to people that it isn't necessarily going to tie everything up in a nice, cute little bow. So if you're not a fan of ambiguous endings, this one might be a little bit of a struggle for you. But you know me, I love those. So that was a cherry on top as far as I was concerned. The movie is not a perfect movie. I don't want to oversell it. It is a low budget movie. Like I said, it was produced by Netflix, and it's obvious it's a low budget movie. It's one location. They don't really go anywhere else, and it's a very small cast of characters. But they were able to deal with their shortcomings to their advantage. Having that one location made everything feel kind of claustrophobic and tense, and ratcheted up that tension quite a bit. And it was good set design, good lighting. They maybe didn't do the best job of figuring out the layout, of the house. Like, when you're in a location, it's good to kind of give a really good understanding to the audience of where everything is, and what the layout of the place is. And I don't think they did the greatest job of that, but it wasn't a big detriment. It was just kind of like a nitpick for me. For the most part, I thought they used the location rather well. They had their set designer did a great job of making it look dystopian, even though you're just inside a house. It really had a good vibe to it that hinted at what was outside, the problems with the world outside. You only get a glimpse of that stuff. You don't really see much. So they're using what they have at them, and their actors are fine. Robbie Amell is the star, and if you're a fan of like the CWDC shows, which I am, you probably recognize him. I Look, Robbie Amell not going to win an Oscar. He's not the greatest actor in the world, but he's fine if he stays in his lane. He's not Daniel Day Lewis, but he's not a detriment. He's not really taking much off the table. And everybody else in the movie, the girlfriend and the home invaders, they're all perfectly fine. They're all staying in their lane, and if they stay in their lane, they're fine. There is a little bit of an issue with the girlfriend in the sense that, a lot of dialogue that hints at the former relationship between Robbie Amell and this woman, but they don't really show you any of it. You're just kind of expected to believe it based on what's being said, and the chemistry between the actors isn't strong enough to help you buy that. So it's a bit of a shortcoming. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit, but it is a challenge, a shortcoming with the actors, and really honestly probably more the script. I guess it's a really tight script, but this is where it breaks down a little bit. It's got a little bit of a problem here. Well, not a little bit of a problem. It's actually a big problem, but we're going to get into that in just a second. Overall, I really like the script because I like the way it kept sucking me in. I like the way it kept just drawing me in by changing things, adding a new problem, adding a new layer to something, adding a new challenge to overcome. Really clever, really fun. I really liked that quite a bit. But did I like it enough to put it on the syllabus? Let's find out. So I really liked ARC, but is that enough to make it syllabus worthy? No. Mostly because it's just up against some real heavy hitters. If you watch the time travel video, you know the movies that I was talking about there. And ARC's just not going to compete with those. It doesn't have the budget to compete with those. It just doesn't have the talent behind it, or actually really in front of it in the camera, to compete with those movies. Those movies are just powerful, heavy hitters that are just too tough to beat off, too tough to beat, too tough to knock off the horror movie syllabus. So it's not going to make the cut there. Also because I just was just hinting about this, it's got a major flaw in it, and that is that love affair that is kind of central to the movie. It's a real frustration because in order for you to understand some of the motivations of the characters, in particular Robbie Amell's character, you really have to buy into this love affair that has ended. They're exes now, and you've got to buy into his devotion. And it's told to you, but it's not on the screen. You're never shown when they were in love back, before the movie started. There's no flashbacks, nothing like that. You're just told about it. And they don't have any kind of natural chemistry that's enough to overcome that exposition story, really. Basically, it's an exposition love story that doesn't really work, and it's a problem because it's important. Because Robbie Amell does some really stupid stuff in this movie, and you'll do some stupid things for love, but I don't really believe he loves her. In fact, there's all these other reasons to think that he would do something different than what he does. Again, I'm trying to dance around the spoilers here, and that's a challenge. Didn't take me out of the movie because I thought it was clever enough and doing enough clever things that it kept me engaged, but I was aware of it. I was aware of it the entire time that there was this problem, this flaw in the story, that I just didn't buy that he would do some of these things for this woman, because I didn't buy into the love story. And so that could have been fixed, honestly. It could have been fixed with a little bit of a better script in terms of the maybe some flashbacks or just some better dialogue that kind of illustrated this not quite so exposition-y. Or maybe just if you had two characters, two actors that had some natural chemistry on screen that was undeniable, maybe you would have bought into it. But that's a big flaw. And if you're going to come at these heavy hitters in the time travel subgenre, you better come correct. You better come without flaws because those movies are so good that you can't have a big one like this. So that's the thing. The movie is super clever. The script is mostly tight, that big glaring error notwithstanding, but I really like it doesn't spoon feed its audience. Like everything that you need to understand this movie is there, but it doesn't just completely spoon feed it to you. It has a few things where it kind of spells things out for you, like the love story, unfortunately. But in terms of the what's going on, the science behind it, the resolution, these things are kind of there as clues and puzzle pieces, but they're not spoon fed to you. You have to put it together yourself, which I love. I think that's it doesn't insult your audience. It respects the intelligence of the audience watching it. So I really, really like this movie. I wish I could say that it could fight its way into the syllabus, but it can't. That's an insurmountable flaw in the movie. Maybe it could get like a mention, extra credit mention in like the horror sci-fi subgenre, maybe horror action. Although really, there's not enough action in this to make it a horror action movie for me. But maybe horror sci-fi, but definitely not in the time travel subgenre. It's just too strong of a subgenre. And honestly, the horror sci-fi subgenre is pretty strong too. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be able to push its way through that. Unfortunately though, because it is a good movie, definitely worth your time if you like these kinds of movies, which as you know, I do. So I'm glad to be able to have an opportunity to talk about it, shine a little bit of a light on it, because like I said, I'd never heard of it, and I'm guessing several of you haven't either. So thank you, Ted, very much for this suggestion. You came through once again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else you've got for us in the comments, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else comes up in the comments too. So bring the recommendations on, and if this movie makes you think of another time travel movie that's equally good or hopefully even better, drop it down in the comments below. Recommend it to me. If it's not as good as this movie, maybe don't. I don't know. I don't need to watch bad movies, but I'm happy to get your recommendations and add them to the to watch list because we're having a lot of fun doing these videos. And now it's time to have fun answering a horror trivia pursuit card. As you know, this is the time of video where I answer a question live on camera. No cutting, so you can see if I guessed it right. And given the nature of this movie, let's go with the psychological category on the card because this is kind of a psychological movie. Again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's got some psychological fun in this movie. It's a good movie, man. It really is. So here's our question for this week. What is the name of the U.S. Senator and presidential candidate for which Leo Barnes is head of security in 2016's The Purge election year? So we're back on this, man. Names of characters. You know how I am with the names of characters. I couldn't even tell you the names of the characters in ARC. Like I kept saying Robbie Amell's character and the girlfriend because I don't remember the names of either of those characters. And I just watched that movie a few days ago. So it's a shortcoming of mine. With the exception of really famous characters, I don't remember the character names very very well. And I definitely don't remember the character in Purge Election Year. I did see the movie. I actually enjoyed the movie. Again, more actiony than horror at that point. And Frank Grillo is in it. I like Frank Grillo. And it's a good movie. I enjoyed that movie. It's one of the better ones. It's not necessarily saying a lot. Like the movies are okay. I love the first one. I know I might be the minority on that one. And they're all fun to me. I enjoy all of them, but they're not amazing movies or anything like that. But this is one of the better ones I thought. As they try to build out the world a little bit. But yeah, I have no idea the name of the senator. I am, of course, going to take a guess. And I've got a name in my head. I think the name that I have in my head is an actress. It might even be the actress that's in the movie, but I'm pretty sure the actress is Juliet something. I'm blanking on her name right now, but I'm pretty sure I think she's the woman from Lost, Juliet Mitchell or something like that. That's not her name, but I think the name of an actress is what I've got in my head. But I'm going to go with it because this is what popped in my head. So I'm going to go with it. I've given you some time to think about this. If you're familiar with the movie and you know the character, then you've got it. If not, it's time to come up with a guess because I'm going to guess it right now. So here comes my guess. Lock your answer in. My guess is going to be Elizabeth Rahm. Elizabeth Rahm is my guess as the U.S. Senator from the Purge election year, but I'm almost positive that's wrong and that it's an actual actress. I think she's the actress from Angel, who played Kate in Angel. I'm almost positive I'm right on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong on this. But let's find out for sure. The character's name is Senator Charlie Roan. So that doesn't honestly ring a bell. It's not like, oh God, it's Charlie Roan, but Rome. I feel like I was kind of close, man. Like there was something that I was kind of connecting the dots on there, but it's not enough to give myself credit. I was just taking a shot in the dark, and that name was stuck in my head, so I was just gonna go with it. Did you get it right? Did you get Charlie Roan? Honestly, I don't remember that at all. I really don't. So let me know if you got it right in the comments. If you got it wrong, let me know what your fun comments were or your fun answers are in the comments because I get off on that. But this was a fun video. I did enjoy this movie. I hope that you guys check it out if you like time travel type movies because it's definitely worth your time. Next week we'll be coming back with something else that's a little different. But until then, class dismissed.